Hello and welcome. My name is Isaac Lucando and I'll be your host on this podcast today. It's a special edition. And today we have the pleasure of having Her Excellency Sophie Ave, who is the French ambassador to Tanzania. We'll be discussing Francophone culture, among other things, and its relevance to Tanzania and East African youth. But in the process of discussing that, we'll be looking at her journey to this particular juncture in her life. So a very big welcome to Her Excellency Sophie Ave. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yes. Now, I believe it will be proper to start our conversation.
You're the boss, you decide.
At this juncture, what's in the name?
Uh-huh.
Your name, Sophie Ave.
Yes.
Let's talk about the genesis of your journey. We now know you as a diplomat, as an ambassador, but tell us about the names.
Okay.
They sound distinctly female.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, distinctly female. So talk about the genesis.
Well, that's
your
lucky.
Roots. Yeah.
Well, I have no idea. My parents obviously decided of those names. I think it was a compromise between Anne and Sophie, so I got both. And one liked Anne, the other one liked Sophie. So that's how I ended with a hyphenated name, which I do not hyphen. And then when I was posted in Ghana, they gave me another name, which is Akosua, which means basically born on a Sunday, because you get a name of the day you were born, day in the week.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Now, part of our audience is young people, and they would be interested to know how you got to be a diplomat. Did you always want to be a diplomat? Was the young Anne interested in becoming a diplomat? What was her path like?
No, I didn't really want to become a diplomat. I never thought I could, because the image I had of a diplomat was someone who was very diplomatic, very patient, very good at negotiating. And when I was young, I didn't think I had that in the house. So I sort of acquired it with time. When I joined the public service, that I was already 30-something. It was a second career. I had started in the private sector. I didn't want to join the diplomatic service because, again, I thought that the qualities, the character, the skills that were needed were miles away from what I could do. The only thing was languages, but I never thought that being a diplomat was about speaking languages. It's one of the skills that you may have, but it's not compulsory. So obviously I didn't think that diplomacy would want me. That's what I thought. So I started off with transport and then defense, thinking that in both of these there was an international element that could make it interesting, and where I could possibly use the languages I was able to speak. But I thought that those very technical subjects were more interesting, because the international part was like a different field in which to promote and defend the interests of the country or the profession of one economic sector, like shipping, for instance. So I thought that was interesting to do, both having this technical skill and having this international appetite to defend those interests internationally. And then I did many things in different ministries until the day the Ministry of Foreign Affairs asked me, how would you like to become an ambassador? And I said, can I think of it? And he said, yes, you can tell me tomorrow. And I said, yes, so I'll think of it tonight. And when I knew that it was in Africa, I think that made it even faster to make the decision, because it's really exciting to be posted in Africa, especially in Anglophone Africa. So it was Ghana first and then Tanzania, because I strongly believe that because of the youth, precisely, Africa is the continent of the future. And when I was young, I was living in Brussels. And I had this incredible impression when I was in Brussels that something was happening, something was bubbling. It was in the 1970s, and we were building Europe. And you could feel that there was something going on that was creating something bigger than just one country. And there was such an enthusiasm and bubbly. I think that was really the word. And I sensed that, because I had already worked a bit with Africa as in the Ministry of Defense, I could sense that there was something going on in Africa. Africa was suddenly thriving, taking its destiny into their hands. This new generation coming up was claiming for something different. They wanted something different from what had been going on for sometimes decades with the same president. In some countries, they have had 40 years the same president, where basically when you look at the continent, it's a continent where the average age is like 19, 20 years old. And when you look at the leaders, the average age is what in France would be retirement time. And you have a life expectancy of your leaders, not in Tanzania, but in some countries in Africa, that is quite impressive. Some of them will be close to 100 by the time they finish their next mandate. So I thought that obviously there was something that's going to happen. There was a new generation that's going to take over. And this new generation has a different vision of what the continent should be. They are connected. They're connected to the diaspora. They're connected among themselves. And being able to witness that to begin with and take part into this and give a hand, if necessary, in areas where they wanted us to, that was a very exciting moment to live.
Wow. So I am curious. You've gotten the information that your status, so to speak, is going to change. You're given all this responsibility of representing your country in Africa. Did you have any preconceptions of Africa before you came and when you actually landed?
No. Yes and no. I had been lucky enough to travel to Africa, but mainly Francophone Africa, because I was the Human Resources Director of the Ministry of Defense. And we had started, we had just responded to Mali, who had asked us in 2013 to come and help them fight terrorism. So we sent troops to Mali. So I had gone to see those troops, if they were treated well, if they had all they needed, if they had the equipment, the food, the Wi-Fi. So I had been on the field, and I wanted to be, even if you would think Human Resources Director is like in the Silver Tower in the office making decisions that are completely disconnected from the field. I didn't want that. I wanted to be on the field. So I had been to Mali, to Niger, to Burkina, to Côte d'Ivoire. I think you say Ivory Coast here. Mm-hmm. But they were Francophone countries. But even though they were West Africans, even though they had a lot in common, even though I realized that they were very different. So my only preconception was that if four countries who share the same currency, the same past, the same language, official language, manage to be that different, I can imagine that every country in Africa is different. So I didn't, of course, have any preconception about Ghana because it's, to be very honest, it's a country that the French do not really know. They very often confuse that with Guyana. Mm. And so when you say it's next to Côte d'Ivoire, then suddenly they're like, oh, okay, we see. But it's an Anglophone country, so people don't come to visit. They have close links with the UK, with the US. So most of their tourists come from there, not from France. Mm. So I really had no idea. I knew they were Anglophones. As I could, of course, I read a few things, but I was really excited to discover that the culture, if I not say the cultures, because they have 70 languages, different languages, and different kingdom. It was different kingdoms. We have chieftaincies, and the chieftaincies are still very vivid. I happen to be a queen mother in 4 of them. So So that gave me the opportunity to see that each of those 4 constituencies, not more that kingdoms, chieftaincies, have different traditions. Some end stool people, some end skin. Some the dress code is different, and I thought it was a blessing to be able to witness that and to be so well accepted and adopted by these. And no, I didn't have preconceptions, like I didn't know what to expect. And because I was not a career diplomat, I hadn't done 30 years in diplomacy, I didn't know what to expect either about what was to be an ambassador. But I had just been given the instruction of, you have to make sure that the country understands what we are here for and what we do. Mm-hmm. So when you don't have limits and you don't have like role models, and you say, oh, I have to do it like my predecessors do, or like the real ambassadors do. Well, it gives much more freedom to do things the way you believe it's going to be efficient. Mm-hmm. And yeah. Mm. So you observe, that was a strength, not to know, not to have preconceived ideas, coming with like a blank sheet, and being open to whatever I was going to learn, whatever I was going to receive, coming with a very open mind. That was a strength eventually, because it helped me adapt.
So there's somebody sitting out there thinking that, they give these titles to everybody.
No,
and
to
I'm
a white
referring
one.
To Ghana.
To a white woman. Let's put it that way.
So I want to reference the very fact that you come from a different culture. You come to Ghanaian culture in this particular case, and 4 different territories, give you titles. So what was that like for you, first and foremost? But was that common?
No. I think it was for some of them, it was the first time. It was as a recognition of things that I had done for the youth, for the culture. For instance, I have fought to get budgets to refurbish some ancient heritage sites or heritage buildings that were completely falling into pieces, to make people proud of their history as well, and telling them, your history didn't start with decolonization. It's a long history, longer than European history, because you're the birth of humanity, especially here in East Africa. And I think that giving back the pride to people who are today, especially the youth, looking for their roots, and making them believe that the story of their country started in 1960s with decolonization is not true. It's undermining the reality of the vivid culture that was there long before colonization, and taking back some part of that history is absolutely indispensable for these youth. They need to know where they come from a long time ago. And they know deep inside that it didn't start in the 60s. It began long before. And we had done, I had really fought with the embassy to be able to promote that all the way to France, taking artists in France for the very first time, because as I said, there's not much connection between France and Ghana. And suddenly I took some artists in France. It was the very first time they were performing in France, which is not the case in Tanzania, because Tanzania is known by the French. It's one of their favorite holiday destination. And we French already know Diamond Platinums and some of your artists. So we don't have that black hole where they know. You say Tanzania in France, people know where it is. You say Ghana, they had no idea. So I've pushed that. I've put Ghana on the French map so that the French suddenly know where they were. And I tried to, through the project we were pushing, to give them this pride back and say, look, you don't realize, but your history dates back. Look, in the 12th century, you already were a big hub for the market where the whole Africa was gathering. And we know that because we funded some archaeological researches, and we found potteries where the patterns were telling where they were coming from, and we could date them back to 12th century. So suddenly they were realizing that, so we're not just a new country. We have a long history. Of course, the country with the borders they have today were designed in Europe. But knowing that the Ashanti kingdom was one of the strongest, with the Mali kingdom. And it's important to tell those people that just like France, our borders have not always been the ones that we have today. We used to be the Roman Empire. We've been occupied by the Germans. We have bits and pieces that were nibbled by Italy. We got them back later. So our borders were not always what you see on the maps today, but it's important to know what they were before. And if you learn history, you will see what France, with the bit of territory that we call France today, was part of a Roman Empire. And then with Napoleon, it was part of a larger French Empire. And then it's now what it is today. Why wouldn't countries in Africa, like Mali, why wouldn't we teach people that Mali used to go all the way from Mauritania, was covering Niger, was covering Burkina, and then this has split differently. That's the result not only of colonization, it's also a result of fights between kingdoms. So you have to reclaim your history, but true history, not a made-up history, a true history. So it's important to work with universities, researchers, and that we give the archives that we have and that we share. So because I believe the youth is really eager to know, where do we come from? I mean, way, way back.
Yes. Very pertinent points, which we will come to rejoin with the concept of Africans, in this particular case, embracing Francophone culture and why that is important. But I want to ask a question about the challenges that you've experienced. Obviously, quite a rich experience you've had, being thrown into the deep end, if you may use that term, not being a career diplomat. You succeed in the work that has been assigned to you. But it would be easy for one to think that it was an easy journey. Were there any challenges that you experienced in your role now as diplomat? And in this particular case, I'm talking about Ghana as well as Tanzania so far.
The challenge is when you enter a new world with a new kind of job, you have to learn. Here, when I arrived, again with no preconceptions, I knew, even if people were telling me, you're so lucky to go to Tanzania. Oh, I've been in Zanzibar on holiday. And someone would say, oh, you'll do safaris in Serengeti. Like I have time to do that. And that's what I'm here for. But still, I need to do it as well, because I want to know what you are proud of and what you are pushing out to the world. Yet, working with the Tanzanian authorities is a way. They set up their own ways and regulations and how they want us to work with them. And we have to learn that. It's a different process than it is in different countries. So you have to understand how it works. You have to, understand diplomacy is also to respect the party in front of you. And if they wanted to do it a certain way, well, then you have to adapt to that certain way and not impose your own way, even though sometimes you have Paris pushing you and say, we need an answer. I say, yeah, but they've got, they have to consult, they have their way of doing it, and we are guests here, not rulers. So the challenge is, but it's part of the job, is trying to understand how it works. It's also trying to understand the country deeply. And I very soon understood that if you really want to speak to the people, go to the villages, understand the impact of the project you're funded for instance, you need to speak Swahili. And that was the greatest challenge for me, because I started learning like a few weeks before I arrived, thinking that would be good to have a few words, but everyone speaks English. That's what I was thinking, and that's what people told me. Say, oh, it's an Anglophone country. The English is one of their official language, so you'll get away with English. And I got here.
And a shocker.
It's not so much, but I realized that people did speak English, but they were much more comfortable in Swahili.
Yes.
So I thought, okay, so I'm the guest, they're the hosts, I have to learn. So I found myself a mwalimu who is coming twice a week. and who has now decided that we have to speak Swahili only during the lessons. So I struggle. I make sure I make all my speeches in Swahili, because when we go to Shinyanga, when you go to Mwanza, if you speak English, the whole crowd, none of them at all. And I could see that even the authorities, when they were listening to speeches that started off in Swahili as a respect, just the few welcoming words, and then carried on in English, they were a bit disappointed, and they lost the attention of the crowd. So I said, okay, I really got to do that. So I tried. So I'm okay when I have to prepare a hotuba and then I read it. So
that's much easier for you.
That's easier for me.
And the fact that anybody reading Swahili, you just read it as it is.
As it is.
Yeah.
So sometimes I change it last minute, but I can speak to my staff. When I tell them what time I come back, if I'm having lunch, when I thank them for the lunch, when it's good, and I have to say chakula cha mchana, kiwa. Oh, was. Kilikuwa. I had it. Kilikuwa. Kitamu.
Kilikuwa kitamu.
Kitamu, asante sana. So I make sure I always thank them in Swahili. At the beginning, they were answering to me in Kiingereza. I was like, how do you expect me to learn if you speak English to me? So now we try to have that in Swahili. I try to speak to my driver as well. So, at least the basics, so that it becomes a bit more natural, organic. It will come. When I listen to Flora, when I listen to some of my staff who speak perfect Swahili, I'm so impressed. I'm like, there's a challenge. That's the challenge. That's the challenge.
So I must say, for those of you watching, I've had the privilege of listening to a few words that she's uttered in Swahili, and I must say it was exhilarating to hear you speak, and it's encouraging, but exhilarating for me, definitely. And I think it is for many Tanzanians when they see somebody who comes from elsewhere. They come here and they make an effort to learn about the culture. It's endearing. It brings those two cultures together. And so on that note, when we get into this next part, or the next question that I'm supposed to ask, I think it's best for me to also move to the middle and say, je m'appelle Isaac.
Oh, wow.
Je parle un peu de français. Je voudrais améliorer mon français. Apprendre beaucoup de mots en français. Yeah?
That's so impressive.
Merci.
Wow.
So when we do that, it means I meet you in the middle. And you meet me in the middle.
Absolutely.
And we learn from each other. So my next question to you, Your Excellency, is what do you think that young people in East Africa can stand to gain from Francophone culture? Because I think the average young person in Tanzania will say like, it's a former British colony. It's like, hey, English, national language. They have, it's like, what, France, huh? They're those who. So what would you say to this young person listening to you? Hey,
I think, first of all, when you already speak Swahili and English, it's going to be a piece of cake to learn French. Your accent is absolutely amazing. So, and all the Tanzanians who are learning French, even beginners, they manage to find the right pronunciation, the right accent, which is very impressive. You do not have the British or American accent, and you can say U and U, which are two different letters, which most Anglophones cannot. So the fact that you already speak two